Hello, this is Pastor Bill again. Hope you're doing well. This will be the last sermon that I record before we go back to regular church services. We'll start back May 17th, and this coming Sunday, as I record this, is Mother's Day, May 10th, and then May 17th we'll plan to have service again, following precautions because of the virus. We'll be sitting a pew apart. We'll be asking people who would like to wear masks to wear masks. And we're going to take other precautions and things. And not going to have any evening services, Sunday or Wednesday, for a while. And at the end of May, we're going to kind of reevaluate things. So at least those of you that have missed church will be able to be back in church again. Of course, there'll be some people who do not feel comfortable coming back, and that's fine too. There's a lot of discussion about the virus and a lot of different opinions, but I'll be back May 17th for the morning service. But today, as I say, we're approaching Mother's Day, and today is a Mother's Day message. And certainly all of us can remember our mothers, and I pray we can all remember them fondly. Some, like myself, the mother's still living, and I thank the Lord for that. Although in my case, my mom is 80, pushing 81 this year. So, and Beth's mom is still alive as well. She's turned 90 last birthday. So we appreciate mothers. We are certainly blessed by our mothers, and most of us are raised with the mother's love. Woodrow Wilson was president when he decided to make Mother's Day a national holiday. Certainly mothers have many different kinds of jobs and many different demands, and they almost have to walk a balance, like a balance beam in the Olympics, to try to balance everything that they do. Sometimes, many times, they are too often taken for granted. A mother had just put her young son to bed upstairs for the upteenth time. Her patience was growing thin, and evidently the child had been asking for different things from the mother. She said, "If I hear you say mother one more time, I'm going to come up there and spank you." Well, for a while it got pretty quiet, but then she heard a small voice from the top of the stairs. "Mrs. Green, can I have a drink of water?" Can you just imagine your kids doing something like that? A mother and a young son returned from a grocery store and began putting away groceries. The boy opened the box of animal crackers. Boy, I used to love animal crackers. How about you? The boy opened the box of animal crackers, and he just took them and he spread them all out on their dining room table. The mother came along and said, "What are you doing?" She said, or the boy said to the mother, "Well, the box said not eat them if the seal is broken. I'm looking for the seal." Yeah, kind of corny, but I like it. You know, there's been a lot of TV moms on different shows, haven't there? You think about Carol Brady from the Brady Bunch, and Shirley Partridge from the Partridge Family, June Cleaver from Leave It to Beaver, and Aunt Bee, of course, from Andy Griffith's show. She was an aunt, but played the role of a mother. Carolyn Ingalls from Little House on the Prairie, and Mrs. Walton, of course, from the Waltons. Flo from the show Good Times, and Marion Cunningham from Happy Days. Many, many different mothers, and when you think of these actresses and you think about the different roles they played as mom and different things about moms comes to play. You know, again, mom is asked to do so many different roles, to balance so many different things as housekeeper and shopper and cook and teacher and confidant, nurse, and the list goes on, doesn't it? And oftentimes today, of course, they often have their own regular job to take care of. So then they do their regular job, they come home and play mom and take care of all the responsibilities of being a mom at home. and it just seems to go on and on. But as a mom, of course, there's a special bond between mother and child. And in the middle, or in the center of that special bond, is a word called love. It's a love that helps all the hurts go away when something happens. It's the love that brings the family together. It's the love that knows no bounds. It's the love that you can always count on your mom having for you. It's the love that will bring you back home. And it's the love that is unconditional. Nothing's going to ever separate child from the love of the mother. So many families, unfortunately, in today's world, do not have a father figure. And so often the mother has to play the role of not just the mother, but also the father, as a single mother, as a divorced mother, as a widow. And it must be so hard for the mother. And mothers tend to want so little back from their children, don't they? I want to read part of something that James Dobson he used to be a Focus on the Family. James Dobson wrote, or he shared at least. It's called An Old Mother's Letter. It goes, "To all my children, I suppose my upcoming birthday started my thoughts along these lines. This is a good time to tell you what I truly want are things I can never get enough of, yet they are all free. I would like you to come and sit with me, and for you to be relaxed." How many times does that happen? We can talk, or we can be quiet. I would just like us to be together. I need your patience when I don't hear what you said the first time. I know how tiresome it must be having to repeat, but sometimes I must ask you to repeat. I need your patience when I think too much about the past, with my slowness and my set ways of doing things. I want you to be patient with what the years have done to me physically. Please be understanding about my personal habits. I spill things. I lose things. I get unduly excited when I try to figure out my bank statements. I can't remember what time I took my medication, or even if I took it already. I take too many naps, and sometimes sleep helps to pass the day. Well, there you have it. Time and patience and understanding. Those are the priceless gifts I want. And then the letter goes on to finish up saying, finally in his letter, Paul wrote, I can do all things through Christ which strengthens me. I know I can too. It's a wonderful feeling to know his eye is on the sparrow, and I know he cares for me. I guess being 80 years old isn't so bad after all. What a blessing. There are too many mothers in nursing homes today, and many of our senior mothers, of course, are in those positions. And they definitely wish that their children would visit more than they do. Even mothers who are still in their own homes, I hear a lot, wish that their children would call them, would come visit more than they do. Mothers love them, and they would do anything for them, of course. And that brings us to a couple of mothers I thought about in the Bible I wanted us to look at today. The first one is found in Exodus 2:2, if you want to turn there in your Bible with me. Exodus 2. Actually, we'll just start with 2 and 1. Verse 1 of chapter 2 of Exodus. And a man of the house of Levi went and took as wife a daughter of Levi. So the woman conceived and bore a son. And when she saw that he was a beautiful child, she hid him 3 months. But when she could no longer hide him, she took an ark of bulrushes for him, daubed it with asphalt and pitch, put the child in it, and laid it in the reeds by the river's bank. And his sister stood afar off to know what would be done to him. You know this is Moses that we're talking about now. Then a daughter of Pharaoh came down to bathe at the river, and her maidens walked along the riverside, and when she saw the ark among the reeds, she sent her maid to get it. And when she opened it, she saw the child, and behold, the baby wept. So she had compassion on him and said, "This is one of the Hebrews' children." Then his sister said to Pharaoh's daughter, "Shall I go and call a nurse for you from the Hebrew women, that she may nurse the child for you?" And Pharaoh's daughter said to her, "Go." So the maiden went and called the child's mother. Then Pharaoh's daughter said to her, "Take this child away and nurse him for me, and I will give you your wages." So the woman took the child and nursed him. And the child grew, and she brought him to Pharaoh's daughter, and he became her son. So she called his name Moses, because I drew him out of the river. What a blessing. What a blessing. It's an interesting story in a lot of different ways. First of all and foremost, you see a mother's love in this story, don't you? She was willing to put her son into the river in a basket to try to rescue him, because remember, Pharaoh was having many of the children killed, thrown into the river actually, in many cases, and thrown to the crocodiles. But here, Moses is saved, and of course God is in the midst of it all, protecting him. We see his sister, who of course is Miriam, is kind of going along, and after the mothers put the baby in the basket and set the basket adrift and along the reeds, the sister Miriam is kind of watching from a distance, it says here. And the daughter of Pharaoh and the maidens, of course, are there, not too far away, I guess, and they see the ark among the reeds, and they go to get the baby, and they see right away, it says this is one of the Hebrews' children. And of course, if you've seen the movie The Ten Commandments, you know there was a Hebrew blanket that was in the basket that perhaps was with the baby, which identified the baby as a Hebrew child. And it says in verse 7, his sister said to Pharaoh's daughter, his sister being Miriam. And so Miriam asked Pharaoh's daughter, his sister must have come out of hiding, I guess, and must have been nearby, and came out and asked the sister, "Shall I go get a nurse for you from the Hebrew women?" And this is something probably the Egyptians didn't want to do or even think about. But Miriam, of course, knew who to go get to nurse the baby. Of course, it was her own mother, and so she went to get her mother to be the nurse for baby Moses. See, in this way, even though the mother, whose name is Jochebed, we see in chapter 6 of Exodus, we are told that the father is Aram and the mother is Jochebed. Jochebed has let the baby go to safeguard the baby because she loved the baby so much. And now God's dealing in the situation. I mean, the Pharaoh's sister could have said that she was going to do something different, but she allows Miriam to go and get a Hebrew woman to nurse the baby, who just happens to be Moses' mother, Jochebed, who, of course, ends up being able to spend more time with Moses, all the time until the baby is actually grows up a little bit more and is weaned from the mother. And so we know that it says the woman takes the child back to Pharaoh's daughter, and again to safeguard the baby's safety, and probably knew that she had no choice but to go and give Pharaoh's sister the baby. So really she gave her child away twice, if you think about it, out of the love that she had for her, the great love that the mother had for the child. And it just, all of us who know mothers today know there's, in most cases, 90-some% of all cases, there's nothing that the mother wouldn't do for the child, even given their very life, in some cases, for the child. And so we see this woman, Jochebed, And we, of course, know that as time went along and Moses found out his true heritage, he did go back to his people. And again, if you're familiar with the movie, The Ten Commandments, he ends up seeing his whole family and being with them again later on, of course. The second mother I want us to take a look at today is found over in the book of 1 Samuel. If you turn to 1 Samuel with me today. And this is another mother who loved her son very much. And we'll just start in chapter 1, verse 1 of 1 Samuel, work our way through. Now there was a certain man of Ramathaim Zophim of the mountains of Ephraim, and his name was Elkanah, the son of Jeroham, the son of Elihu, the son of Dohu, the son of Zuph, an Ephraimite. He had 2 wives. The name of one was Hannah, and the name of the other Peninnah. Peninnah had children, but Hannah had no children. This man went up from his city yearly to worship and sacrifice to the Lord of hosts in Shiloh. Also the 2 sons of Eli, Hophni and Phinehas, the priests of the Lord, were there. And we see them other places in Scripture. And whenever the time came for Elkanah to make an offering, so he goes once a year, we see, to worship and make an offering, he would give portions to Peninnah, his wife, and to all her sons and daughters. But to Hannah he would give a double portion, for he loved Hannah, although the Lord had closed her womb. So he has 2 wives, which a lot of people did back then, although I can't say it was really something God wanted to happen. We see over and over that happens. Even Solomon, in all his wisdom, did things like that, had many concubines and so on and so on. Here we see that this man loves Hannah. The husband loves Hannah so much that he's given her a double portion because he loves her more than Peninnah. Basically, the 2 wives became rivals. Peninnah could have children, but Hannah could not. Verse 6. And her rival, Hannah's rival, Peninnah, also provoked her severely to make her miserable because the Lord had closed her womb. So it was year by year when she went up to the house of the Lord, she provoked her. Therefore she wept and did not eat. Hannah was miserable. Hannah wanted a child and could not have one. Boy, Peninnah just let her have it. Reminded her of it every time it came to time to go to the temple. Her husband, in verse 8, Elkanah, goes to her and says, Hannah, why do you weep? Why do you not eat? He loves her. He's concerned about her. Why is your heart grieved? Am I not better to you than 10 sons? You know, the husband's saying, hey, I've done all I can. Why are you so upset? Why are you hurting? Sounds like a husband doesn't understand the wife, huh? So Hannah arose after they had finished eating and drinking in Shiloh. Now Eli the priest was sitting on the seat by the doorpost of the tabernacle of the Lord. She was in bitterness of soul and prayed to the Lord and wept in anguish. Then she made a vow and said, O Lord of hosts, if you will indeed look on the affliction of your maidservant and remember me, and not forget your maidservant, but will give your maidservant a male child, then I will give him to the Lord all the days of his life, and no razor shall come upon his head. And it happened, as she continued praying before the Lord, that Eli watched her mouth. Hannah spoke in her heart, only her lips moved, but her voice was not heard. Therefore Eli thought she was drunk. You should never make judgment calls about something like that. Even Eli here, who's the priest, he was wrong. You never know about another person until you walk in their shoes, and even then, sometimes you still don't know what their motivation is or what they're thinking, what they were doing, really. Only God really knows that. But here he makes this supposition that she must be drunk, and then he follows up on it. Eli says to her, how long will you be drunk? Put your wine away from you. You know, he doesn't know diddly, and here he is thinking he knows everything that's making her tick. Hannah answered and said, No, my lord, I'm a woman of sorrowful spirit. I have drunk neither wine nor intoxicating drink, but have poured out my soul before the Lord. Boy, he must feel bad about it now. Do not consider your maidservant a wicked woman, for out of the abundance of my complaint and grief I have spoken until now. Eli answered and said, Go in peace, and the God of Israel grant your petition which you have asked of him. Now he sees that she's really heartbroken, and she's really speaking from her heart and praying for her heart, that there's truly a petition that she's asking the Lord for. He doesn't know what it is, of course, but can tell from her emotional condition that is something that's really important and deep meaning to her. Verse 17, Then Eli answered and said, Go in peace. The God of Israel grant your petition which you've asked of him. She said, Let your maidservant find favor in your sight. So the woman went her way and ate, and her face was no longer sad. So at least she said her prayer, kind of got it off of her chest. She's talked to the priest, and he's blessed her and asking that the Lord grant your petition and so on. And so she's in a much better frame of mind as she leaves. 19. Then they rose early in the morning and worshipped before the Lord, and returned and came to their house at Ramah. And Elkanah knew Hannah his wife, and the Lord remembered her. So it came to pass in the process of time that Hannah conceived and bore a son, and called his name Samuel, saying, Because I have asked for him from the Lord. And so now the mother has been blessed, and she has a son, Samuel. God has heard her prayer and has answered. Remember, though, she made a promise to God. Now the man Elkanah and all his house went up to offer to the Lord in the yearly sacrifice and his vow. But Hannah did not go up, for she said to her husband, Not until the child is weaned, then I will take him, that he may appear before the Lord and remain there forever. You can't really blame her. She wants to spend all the time she can with the baby until he grows a little bit more and is weaned. And so, but she is still holding to her promise here, and evidently by this time she's told her husband of the promise, where she kind of tells him that she's going to wait until the right time to take Samuel along. Verse 23, So Elkanah her husband said to her, Do what seems best to you, wait until you've weaned him, only let the Lord establish his word. Then the woman stayed and nursed her son until she had weaned him. Now when she had weaned him, she took him up with her, with 3 bulls, 1 ephah of flour, a skin of wine, and brought him to the house of the Lord in Shiloh. And the child was young. Then they slaughtered a bull and brought the child to Eli. And she said, O my Lord, as your soul lives, my Lord, I am the woman who stood by you here praying to the Lord. For this child I prayed, and the Lord has granted me my petition, which I asked of him. Therefore I also have lent him to the Lord. As long as he lives, he shall be lent to the Lord. And so they worship the Lord there. And then you have the prayer of Hannah in chapter 2, if you'd like to read that. She talks about her heart rejoicing in the Lord. Here she is giving her son in service of the Lord, bringing him back to Eli, the priest of the temple, who she had gone to see years before. And now she is bringing Samuel back because she had promised God that she would dedicate his life to serving God, and so on. And so Eli takes Samuel in and, of course, raises him to be a servant of God. And we know that Samuel goes on to be both prophet and priest. Samuel had a very important part. If you remember, it was Samuel who, as a priest and a prophet later, would go and select David to be the next king of Israel. And Samuel spoke for God as a priest. But the point of this story at this point is Hannah, and how much she had wanted a child for so long. And you can understand that when anybody is waiting, is yearning for something, and they're waiting and waiting, perhaps you've been there. There's something that you've waited for a long time, you've really wanted, you've really yearned for, but it just never seemed to happen for the longest time. And then finally it did. Well, in her case, finally, she's allowed to have a child. God blesses her, and she has this child, Samuel. And some people would have just kind of forgot their promise, they would just ignore what they had promised God before because they got what they wanted, and now they're going to just kind of be selfish. Well, Hannah wasn't anything like that. She promised God, and she knew she had to fulfill that promise, and she dedicated Samuel to the service of God. We have to wonder, there's no record that she had other children that I know of. We have to wonder as she goes back to the temple year after year with Elkanah and with Peninnah, that she would probably see Samuel each year. And I'm sure it was a big deal for her. Let me see here. Okay, in chapter 2, you look over in verse 18. Samuel ministered before the Lord even as a child, wearing a linen ephod. Moreover, his mother used to make him a little robe and bring it to him year by year when she came up with her husband to offer the yearly sacrifice. So she came and she brought him a new ephod, a new priestly robe to wear each year. Eli would bless Elkanah and his wife and say, "The Lord give you descendants from this woman for the loan that was given to the Lord." Then they would go to their own home. And so Eli is asking God to give Hannah more children here. Eli would bless Elkanah and his wife, which would be Hannah. The Lord give you descendants for this woman for the loan that was given to the Lord, to kind of take the place. She gave Samuel to the service of the Lord, so Eli is praying that they have more children. And it tells us in verse 21, I had forgotten this. The Lord visited Hannah so that she conceived and bore 3 sons and 2 daughters. So the Lord continued to bless this mother and gave her 5 more children. And meanwhile, the child Samuel grew before the Lord. So what a blessing. She has a son she's proud of, that she's so happy of, her firstborn, and he's in service to the Lord. And now God has provided her 5 more children, has blessed her and the family. Peninnah has nothing else to say to her, I guess. So what a blessing that story is. But again, just like the story of Moses and his mother, Jochebed, but the love that she showed in being willing to give up Moses. Here, Hannah had this great love, and she was willing to give up Samuel to the service of the Lord. Throughout the Bible, throughout many people's families and community, there's been many acts of courage and love by mothers everywhere. Just imagine what your mothers, imagine what your grandmothers, your great-grandmothers, and so on through the years. Think about all the things they've gone through for their families. Think about the years of hardship. Think about the years of strife. In some cases, the years of war, the years of depression, the years of heartache, all for the love of families. The family was the first institution begun by God. He knows the importance of every family and every parent. He has blessed mothers with gifts that magnify his own name. When mothers give unconditionally when no one else will. When mothers love a child that nobody else sees value in anymore. When they give all they can and the child sees love in their eyes and perhaps for the first time feels love in their heart, that's when that child, looking at the mother and the love that the mother has for the child, that's when the child can actually see the face of God through the love of the mother. We don't know how long we have with anyone. For those of us that still have mothers living, we don't know how long we have with our mothers, with grandmothers and so on. I loved both of my grandmothers before they went home to be with the Lord, and it was a blessing to know them. One a little bit more than the other, but it was quite a blessing to know them. I'm still blessed to have my mother. I'm still blessed to have my mother-in-law and my stepmom, matter of fact, as well. So I have a lot of Mother's Day cards to buy in the next few days, don't I? And I know they all love their family very much. Not every family, unfortunately, can say that today. So let the mothers in your life, stepmoms, mother-in-laws, whatever they may be, even, daughters that have children, you want to get them a Mother's Day card for your daughter and so on. So let the moms in your life know just how much you love them this Mother's Day and how special they are. Send a card, give a call, whatever it may be. And if they're your own daughters, even granddaughters that have children, let them know how proud you are that they're such good mothers for their children, how much they are loved. When you go to the nursing homes, remember the folks who are there. And yes, they all have families for the most part. They all have families somewhere too. Once they were with their families as a father or a mother. So remember them when you get a chance to visit as well. So I hope everyone has a blessed Mother's Day. I want to close with a little poem here called Thankful for an Old-Fashioned Mother. Thankful for an Old-Fashioned Mother. It says it's by Mrs. J.R. Pullybank. That sure sounds like a fictitious name to me. I don't know. Pullybank. Here's the poem. She was just an old-fashioned mother. She did not pretend to be smart. To care for her home and her dear ones was the wish that was first in her heart. She was raised by the old-fashioned rules so sparsely employed today, and when we so richly deserved it, we were spanked in the old-fashioned way. A good name is far better, she'd say, than all the wealth of a nation, and truth is best any day. She believed in the old-fashioned Bible, and she trusted in old-fashioned prayer. She told us Jesus would hear us if we'd speak anytime, anywhere. Thank God for an old-fashioned mother, for the Bible and old-fashioned prayer, for the old-fashioned faith that is looking for our Lord to appear in the air. God bless you. I hope you have a very blessed Mother's Day. God bless all of our mothers.